the way it was supposed to work is you're supposed to sit in this little room at the corner of the bay and have these big mirrors that would let you see the bay. And they would engrave coordinates on the mirrors like a grid, like a game of Battleship. And you could literally go, oh, there's a boat at C5, and push this button, and then it would blow up the boat. And they tested it, and it worked so well that it terrified everybody.
Welcome to GOA State of the Second podcast. I'm John, and today we're joined by Othais and May from Sea and Arsenal. How are you folks?
Good. We've been doing the traditional Southern thing of debating foods for the past 5 minutes.
I mean, that's what it should be.
Oh, that's cute. You think it was 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
So let's go ahead and start off. How did Sea and Arsenal start? How did you get into this? What's the whole backstory between you two?
This one's
Yeah, it's
fever
my
dream.
fault. Yeah, unfortunately.
It really is.
So actually, between the two of us, May was a shooter before I was. So she grew up with it. I did not. Despite being raised in the South, it wasn't my family's bag at that time. Not that my family didn't have guns, but just and go shoot.
Meanwhile, for us, our family, essentially, it was a tool. It was just like a really good pair of scissors in the household, essentially.
So I picked it up post-college, sort of first job out of college, hanging out with one of the guys, went out to the farm to do some riding, some shooting, some things like that. And that's the first time I really shot a rifle. It was a Mosin M38 carbine, and I was given Sony earbuds for hearing protection. So that woke me up a little bit. I might have some permanent damage from that little adventure. But I was like, okay, this was fun. And I think like a week later, his girlfriend at the time was not big on him having the rifles laying around the apartment. So he sold me like that and a 9130 for like $100. And, I gave the 9130 over to a roommate of mine and just kept the carbine because I was like, oh, why would I need more than one of these?
That's kind of dating you a little bit because the price on that. Jesus,
yeah. So to be fair, at that time, that was probably not even the best price. But,
Right?
but the Mosins, to this day, people get fascinated by the number of markings because of all the refurbs and stuff they've been through. So I did the same thing where I was like, what does any of this stuff mean? And I did not find the answers I wanted to. So I ended up buying books and I didn't find the answers I wanted to. So I kind of set that aside and started working on other guns, and I became a gun collector. And in the process of this kind of process of researching things and finding the next thing that I want to look into and buying all these books, I lost track of what I was doing, so I had to start writing notes to myself. And since I was already doing that, and I was already friends with like 2 photographers, I started taking photos of the firearms. And then I would do little write-ups and I would put it out on the internet. Blog style, and also Reddit was very big at the time and not as censored as it is now. So I became really popular on Reddit, of all things.
Your pictures, your photography, it like was something people had never seen before.
Everybody loved it, and now it looks so terrible. We've gone so far beyond.
It's so bad compared to now.
But I guess it was sort of a niche hobby, and people weren't putting a lot of attention to actually photographing and documenting on the internet. They were just doing it, for their own magazines or trade journals or whatever you want to call them. Like the hobby journals were doing it, but publicly, I kind of became a gateway for a lot of guys. And so eventually we realized, well, we kind of need to make the jump to video. And then, to be perfectly honest, my family kind of imploded. My parents were much older. They had both predeceased. Well, they predeceased me, which they should, but much earlier than you'd think, in my early 20s. And so my siblings kind of scattered. I didn't really have much going on. And other members of extended family were kind of dying left and right. And I reached that age that, in my 20s, I was kind of in that position where most people are in their 40s, where family starts dying and you have to start kind of reinvesting in your future. And I went, I don't want to do what I'm doing. And so I kind of launched the video series. I gave it like a 1 year Hail Mary out of my savings to see what we could do. May invested in it as well. And, she came in because I can't film myself shooting, I mean, you can, a lot of people do selfie stuff now, but at that time it was weird. And I was trying to do something a little higher brow. So she became our designated markswoman so that I could film her. Over time, she's learned to run the camera, so now we both take responsibility for that. But it gave me enough room to run what I was doing. And then from there, as the show's grown and we've had more funding, she's taken over more and more roles and come in full time. And so now we both do it full time.
And then we eventually got Bruno, our animator, in like 30-something episodes in?
No, it was like 60-something in.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember.
We ended up with a part-time animator because we were doing 2D animations to sort of support how everything works. Because the whole emphasis of the show was to have a very visual format to be able to show people exactly how these things work and where they came from. And I was doing these horrendous 2D animations by literally taking the guns apart and photographing everything and then animating it myself. They actually were pretty
good for 2D.
They're very Monty Python-esque.
Yes.
But they did get the point across, except for you start getting stuff like, the one that broke me was the Luger. Because the way the Luger's trigger mechanism wraps around, you kind of need to see it from more than one angle to understand it.
You actually did have to show a second angle of it working.
Right. And unlike a 3D animation where you define the object and then you could rotate the camera around, with a 2D photo animation, I had to take photos from both directions, animate two separate animations, and then keyframe them together so that they work simultaneously. So it's like exponentially more work than just a 3D at that point. And I went, okay, hold on, this is going insane. So I kind of voiced that actual concern on the show, and someone who was watching the show, Bruno, actually reached out to me and said, well, you know, if you want an animator, I just graduated from this arts program and everything. And I went, okay, can you come on up? So he ended up moving over to Charleston with us.
I do love him showing up, by the way, because he didn't tell us he was coming.
So now
he just showed up.
Sarasville has me, who does most of the research and stuff like that. May, who does most of the editing and handles the sort of business management side of it, and a lot of the camera and audio now. And then we have Bruno, the animator, and that's really it. We have other people that come in as needed, ad hoc, for certain sub settings of things. But
yeah, we've got like patent researchers overseas for us currently. We have some people doing little things for ammo acquiring and stuff like that. But Suze does a lot of ammunition now for us.
Suze will help out with ammo loading. Every once in a while, we get somebody that takes on a special project because they're invested in it and they're willing to help us out with that project. But generally, in terms of core team, there's just the three of us.
So you started, what, about 10 years ago? Right.
Our first video was in 2015.
Oh, okay.
June 2015, actually.
So
we just passed our anniversary on the 5th.
That would have been 9, though, right?
Wait, what year is it?
2024.
Oh, 9 years. There you go.
9 years.
Hooray.
For video.
Count.
No, we'd done article work and had the website up for several years before that.
Yes.
So some of your first videos were all about World War I, the Great War, guns. Was it just a happy medium that it fell in right around that 100-year anniversary?
No, it was like the worst thing I ever did.
It's, literally the worst thing you've ever done.
I was a World War II collector, and we had the guys from a series on YouTube called The Great War that a lot of people enjoy.
Yes, I love them.
They reached out to us for licensing images. And I said, well, actually, we're about to start doing video. Would you like to do video with us? And they said, sure. And we came up with sort of a live stream idea. But the problem is they're doing World War I. So I went, well, I got this World War II stuff here, but how hard can it be to really pull in some World War I stuff?
How hard could it be?
And
wonderful question.
The problem is actually at the time, World War I stuff was cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
So it was not insane to think that I could just acquire what we needed and then move it along. You know what I mean?
And then luckily we had a friend of ours who actually had a substantial collection in town down the road from us, essentially.
Right. So we're like, okay, we've got this, that, and the other. Oh, boy. Because then, Battlefield 1 drops. The Great War is doing well. All of a sudden, the World War II stuff becomes very collectible in a way that it wasn't before. And so it becomes almost punitive. And then there's a lot more firearms than I realized in World War I because I was a World War II focused guy.
Goodness, yes.
So I just promised something that was very hard to deliver. And I guess what made the show is that I was willing to just keep delivering because I went, no, I already said I'd do this. And then 8 years later, we were still doing World War I.
It was literally until we could not do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Great War's done. We're still doing it.
Right.
So, but we made it through as much as we could. There's still some odd machine guns and sort of rare pieces that we're struggling to get in, but we've done the vast majority of small arms that were in World War I.
Well, it's crazy. When you think World War I, you just think of like, it seems like the Civil War. Like these guns are the technology boom for firearms during that time and the amount of different guns in that time, the different changes in innovation. I mean, it's insane.
Oh yeah.
We're actually under a number of NDAs with current manufacturers.
Yep.
Because a lot of times it's easier to reach out to me than to a very expensive like patent researcher. And they'll just sort of say quietly like, hey, could you sign this NDA real quick? Yeah, okay, what's up? Have you seen this before? Yes, 1914. Yes, 1910. Yes, 1905.
Or do you know the solution to this? Yeah, they solved that in 1907.
Yeah.
What?
And so I'll just pull up examples on that, and I'll tell them this might not be the first one. I just know of this one, and they're sitting there going, "I thought I invented something new," and you're going, "No, because there's so many people were working on these problems at the time, and it's just funny where the bottlenecks are. It might be a cartridge development issue, it might be a gas system issue, but there's a lot of ideas around those core functionalities that were already developed, but then not implemented well until some other emergent technology comes out. We actually see this a lot in the handgun world because until you have metallic cartridge, it's kind of hard to do a lot of things that are, let's say, double action, because if you end up with a failed cook-off or something like that, you get out of time and blah, blah. So it's just simpler to do single action, blah, blah, blah. Well, once you have reliable metallic cartridge, all these ideas kind of come back around, but they've already been patented and the patent has already expired. So now they're in the public domain and people are going insane with them. And it's just interesting how much people were sort of too far ahead of the wave and they didn't profit by it, but they had the right idea of where we were going.
Well, I mean, just think of the advances Browning made from 1899 to 1911.
Right.
Just the amount of changes and iterations of his designs throughout those years is just insane to think about.
What's crazy is actually, if you start exploring sort of the pre-Browning era, is how much he didn't invent, but rather deeply refined and combined. There's a lot of times that Browning would end up in these sort of like either threats of lawsuit or lawsuit because the core concept actually was already out there. It's just that it wasn't done anywhere near as efficiently, which was, people kind of remark on him being a genius for thinking these things up in his head and never really drawing them. Having an idea that just appears in your head that is like a core concept of how something might lock together, not that remarkable for someone that has that kind of mindset. Most engineers are able to do that. The interesting thing is how that he was able to iterate on his designs in his own head to sort of say, well, wait, where's the waste? And being able to keep multiple points of contact in his mind and sort of go, well, hold on. How can I delete this and put it over here and get both functionality at once? And he's like, yes, you can. And he also got a lot of help, though, from like Winchester and Colt. They would also help refine the designs down tighter. And that efficiency, I think, is what people really appreciate about his work. They might not voice it that way because they don't understand that's what they're really seeing. But, I mean, the efficiency of, say, like most people are familiar with the 1911, of having that sort of slide locking tipping block or tipping barrel action. Very efficient. It's hard to get away from. Most handguns use that system now because it's so efficient. So
that's crazy. That, all the way back to 1911.
Right. But then again, most people don't realize most modern handguns. Okay, so you lock. You guys would be familiar with this. You like a Glock. There's sort of an extension over the chamber that locks into the slide, and that's your locking surface. Well, a lot of people don't realize is the competitor to the 1911 at the time was designed by Whiting, who worked for Webley, and he did the Webley autoloader. Now, that gun used sort of a dual camming system, like a horizontal diagonal line that would bring the barrel back and down, not tipping, but sort of parallel.
But it locks into that block up in the back of the receiver.
But that gun is the first one I know of that locked sort of an extension over the barrel into the actual hole for the ejection in the slide. So your actual port in the slide that you already have to have. So, as Browning used separate lugs. They didn't take advantage of the already existing hole that you had to have in the slide in order to kick out your spent casings. Whiting did. So most modern guns are actually sort of a combination of Browning's design and Whiting's design, but we never think about it that way because we just see the Browning part of it,
Well, yeah, you don't think, Browning had such a large name. Everyone still contributes him to the high power, even though he didn't finish the high power.
Dieudonné Sauvé.
Yes. Which is the same man who made the FAL.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, Browning's just got this big name, and I think that's just because he came up with so many designs.
Oh, he was absolutely prolific.
Yeah.
And extremely efficient in what he was doing, like I said before, and his ability to sort of move between, and also to do iterations of the same concept over and over again. We often talk about the Winchester 97. We have one here today that I brought in for you. But around the same time, he was designing what became I believe the Stevens 500, which is, that sort of humpback shotgun that we're all kind of familiar with, the old Sears that a lot of people used to have. It's like nearly on top of the 97, he was already designing that in several other shotguns. And if you go over to, like, we have friends at the Cody Firearms Museum, there's a number of shotgun designs that are there that never got produced by anybody that were also perfectly valid ways of doing the same thing. So he had this way of sort of making multiple approaches and sealing out all the competition because he's like, well, we could do it this way, we could do it this way, you could do it this way. Normally take 5 inventors to come up with this 5 ways.
And then he just patents them all and it's like, they're all mine.
Well, even when he came out with the 86 lever shotgun, what was that?
85 was the first one? I believe it's 85, but now we're doing...
We're going way back.
Yeah.
But even then, he was like, this is inefficient. Why are we doing this? And Winchester was like, well, we make lever guns.
You're talking about the 87. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the original falling block rifle.
Yeah.
But you're talking about the 87 lever action shotgun.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No, because he's like, there says we want a lever action shotgun. He goes, that's inherently stupid. And they're going, yeah, but we do lever actions. And he goes, okay. And he manages to make one. But because it's naturally like this, the sort of mortal enemies, the lever action and the shotgun concept, it comes out terrible.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah, terrible.
But everybody wants one because of Terminator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To be fair, everybody wants one. And everybody thinks they can twirl it. They don't realize how heavily modified the one from Terminator was, so that you could do that twirl. We've actually already filmed with one of those things. They are so awful.
They really are.
They really are terrible, terrible firearms, but beautiful, but
absolutely gorgeous. Don't care for using them.
No, they look great.
Oh yeah, cool.
The manual of arms is confusing, like in terms of where your cartridges rest. Like it's just any gun that sort of palms a cartridge on you is not my favorite, because once it's out of sight, it's like the Spencer pump action shotguns. They have a little spot where they can hide a cartridge on you. The Madsen,
the Madsen machine gun,
Madsen machine gun for the same reason can kind of hide a cartridge on you. And there's nothing worse than a gun that can make a cartridge just sort of disappear in this negative space, and then you have to keep working it and hope that it comes out. Bothers the crap out of me.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, it's crazy to think, like, you pulled this out of the case when we were downstairs. I smiled like a schoolgirl.
You did.
This is the coolest.
It was excellent.
So for audio listeners, we brought along a Winchester 97 trench gun, and actually we brought along the Remington Model 10.
I don't know how much they can see.
Well, not on the audio.
Oh, okay.
Some of these guys are listening.
Oh, yeah,
there's audio.
So there's a World War I era fixed frame Winchester 97 trench gun in the room
with a matching bayonet.
That's true,
and it has brought much joy to me. He knew how to pull up my heartstrings.
That's true.
I fell in the same boat as you when I first started off, and I'm going to date myself too. I bought a Mosin Nagant 9130.
Many of us did.
$89, and then I got into the surplus game.
Right.
And it's so cool. The surplus game is so cool, and a lot of people just don't do it. And I don't understand why, because, I've got the 9130, then I got the Nagant revolver, and then I showed you guys the pictures of the Ruby and all these things, and you go, these are designs that are just have gone. I mean, just look at the Spanish. The amount of designs the Spanish have copied, and you can get them on the surplus market for next to nothing.
Oh yeah,
I'm struggling to find a particular Spanish gun.
I know
because I can't get one for myself because they're always priced wrong. The Spanish made a lot of copies of the Merwin Holbert, and there are a great many Merwin Holberts that have sold for well over $1,000 today that are clearly Spanish copies. But what they do is somewhere along the lines, the markings got rubbed off conveniently, and you can tell if you know what you're doing, but it's kind of hard to tell. And so there's a lot of very high dollar Spanish Merwin Holberts out there now where I'm going, I just want an actual Spanish one
for the Spanish price. Yeah.
So that I can talk about this period of Spanish history, but no, everybody's charging for it like it's an American one, and no one knows that they're out there. And it's something like 1 in 10 is not an American Merwin.
I wonder how many poor bastards are pulling theirs out of the drawer right now and just going, oh, crap.
Yeah, well, look close, because if you don't have the actual U.S. markings as they're supposed to be exactly right, then it's probably that if it's sort of scrubbed off blank, there's a good chance that those weren't Norwich markings that were scrubbed off. It's probably Spanish markings that were scrubbed off.
Well, I think when we were at the gathering, that was the one I talked to you about, because that was the one I just found out about, was the Merwin Holbert, where you pull the barrel and all the cartridges eject. And if you look back and think about all the gun companies that have gone under over the years and the designs, they were up in quality with Colt and Smith at the time, but they were not making their own stuff.
That's it. It was okay. Was it Hopkins? I believe was making. Yeah, Hopkins Allen was making theirs. So it was sort of a licensed design. And Hopkins Allen's actually made their own sort of like large frame guns that were kind of long forgotten now because they were rimfire for the most part. But there's a lot of good quality that has just sort of disappeared, especially from the history books. It's fun to, I'm wearing a t-shirt and nobody can see it, but we actually came out with a t-shirt last year for the Fonyu lockwork, which was a Belgian patent that we managed to locate thanks to, by the way, we really appreciate our patronage. Almost all of our shows funded by patron dollars. And so I took some of those funds and I paid for a friend of mine to take some time, thankfully, because if I paid an actual guy to do this, it would have been a lot more expensive. But he was willing to go over to the Belgian archives and just dig Belgian patent archives for us, because we know that a lot of revolver history is hidden in the Belgian patent archives.
Yep.
Everybody thinks of America as sort of revolver central. No, it's actually mostly Britain and Belgium, especially Belgium, were sort of the innovators of the revolver once Colt left off. And a lot of that history is completely forgotten. So I'll read books on Smith & Wessons and they say, oh yeah, they were looking at these 3 lockworks. And I can sit there and go, that's a Chamelot Delvine, that's a Fonyu, that's a whatever. And they ultimately chose the worst lockwork of the 3 for this one design. And it's probably because they were afraid of being hit by a patent lawsuit in Europe because it was marketed to the European market because it was a double action. But that's nowhere in that text, nor is the speculation in that text, because this is a person who's only studied Smith & Wessons or maybe only U.S. revolvers. So they have no clue that this is actually a Belgian design that has just been brought over and explored because they probably got sample pieces from Belgium. Everybody went to Liège for ideas in the handgun market at that time. And so we've been unraveling that mystery. Anybody that wants to see what we're doing, by the way, all of it goes onto our website. So it's like revolvers.cnarsenal.com, and all the patents are there as we can get them processed. We have a guy that's been volunteering on Discord to help us out.
All free access.
And we just dump them all in there. I pay for them to go get found, or I pay the fees to get them, copied out. And we're just trying to unpack as much as we can. But, everybody likes the Colt Pythons, all the snake guns. Most of the Smith & Wesson lock work that we're familiar with, although they did make a change in their slide rebound. Most of what we consider to be modern revolvers are derivatives of this 1874 patent, which itself is just one modification of a patent that came before it and blah, 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 but totally forgotten about. So the modern revolver as we know it was pretty much done in 1874, and no one's noticed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just mind-blowing. I mean, there's a lot of things that people don't. I mean, we talk about the revolver history is a big one because everyone's like, "Oh, Colt was the first one."
Yeah,
but it wasn't Colt. There was other ones out there before Colt even patented his, and even then there was arguments between him and other people on who should own the patents, or even European patents versus U.S. patents. We talk about. I mean, look at Browning. He split his patents between FN and Colt for a long time because one was European market, one was American market, and Colt couldn't sell stuff to the European market.
Yeah, I mean, Colt's initial revolver seems to be some combination of it seems to, by the way it's designed, suggest that he was aware of the precursor designs, even though he denies it. Which, of course, he would, because Colt's ultimate appeal is that he's the quintessential American. He's a salesman who is attempting to drag the rest of the world.
He was a salesman.
Yeah, he attempted to drag the rest of the world into understanding the concept of economy of scale. And at that time in the arms industry, we didn't have it. The idea that, okay, we need to we want to make this firearm. If we can use machinery and jigs and whatever to make 10,000 of it minimum, exactly the same way, then we can get the price down. Mm-hmm. And then, and you can see it in court records and stuff at the time, because he was actually drawn into a court in England when they were trying to. England was having a debate about starting their own state manufactory and some things like that. They were trying to get cost data from Colt on the cost to produce certain things. Colt's deepest secret was how much it actually cost him to make his revolvers. He was willing to sell them at a price below other people in the market for what you're getting, but he wasn't willing to sell them at a thin margin. He got a hefty margin on everything because being the first person to really approach this economy of scale, he should reap all the benefits of it. So he only thought about competing with the market price. He didn't care about beating the market price deeply, which would essentially have driven everybody else out of business. It probably would have been the smarter move for him to do that, because if he could have gotten his prices down, we now know discount marketing is the way to sort of kill a market. But the problem is then you permanently drive that market down. So maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong. The point being is he hid his cards. However, he did have to explain to the British, you don't understand. You have to give me almost all the money up front so that I can buy the machines to do this. And they're like, well, let's just give you some of the money up front, and then when it's all here, we'll give you the rest. And he's like,
but no, I need the machines to do the thing. Right. So you got to give me all the money so I can do the thing.
And they're going, but these other tradesmen that have been here for hundreds of years, we pay them piecework. And he's like, yes, they've had hundreds of years to get these tools into place. And then also they can't do it for that price in that economy because they can't afford to buy the machine. It's very interesting. So through his sort of like essentially lying, I mean, just constantly lying and overselling and pushing and pushing and pushing, he got people to understand this concept. And then immediately after that, you suddenly see, sort of the next generation of firearms is people banding together, various prominent gunsmiths banding together to form things like FN, which was a coalition of gunsmiths in order to produce for the government so that they didn't have their manufacturing taken away from their country. Because that was the big fear after that, was like, well, hold on, the first person to sort of be able to make everything like Steyr and OEWG Steyr in Austria, they're going to put everybody out of business in their own countries unless these gunsmiths band together and buy the same sort of equipment. And so it's fascinating how he sort of pushed the Industrial Revolution, essentially, or at least the portion of it that would be like mass manufacture and interchangeable parts, He pushed it by essentially lying about what he could do, but that started to get the capital available to do it. And now that's how our entire economies work. Like we do everything on this scale method now. So really innovative, but poorly understood because most people are just like, he made the best revolver. And you're like, okay, but that's so not what's important about Colt.
I still say Colt is one of the most fascinating individuals in history. If I could ever have the actual truth of a man's life, Colt is the singular person I would pick out and be like, done. I want everything that's actual truth on him.
The amount of times Colt went bankrupt just in the beginning.
Oh, yeah, with other people's money, too.
Yeah.
Like bankrupt in the fires.
He was truly a salesman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What was it? It was the first one was the Patterson. And then after the Patterson came out, it was the...
Oh, he did more than that. He designed a harbor defense system of subaquatic mines. So he had these waterproof mines. And you would sit in this room. The way it was supposed to work is you're supposed to sit in this little room at the corner of the bay and have these big mirrors that would let you see the bay. And they would engrave coordinates on the mirrors like a grid, like a game of Battleship. Mm-hmm. And you could literally go, oh, there's a boat at C5 and push this button and then it would blow up the boat. And they tested it, and it worked so well that it terrified everybody. But the cost was prohibitive, so it was never put into place. But his harbor defense system was basically like, we'll just mine the whole harbor, but it'll all be like, it won't blow up until we hit the button. And you just have a guy that sits there, and if an enemy ship comes into the grid, he just hits the grid button like literally a game of Battleship and blows it up.
Just real life.
He was also responsible for the waterproofing. So in doing that, he had to develop a waterproofing cabling method. Well, that was actually used by Samuel Morse for the initial Morse testing for Morse code. Same inventor of that, but he was doing his, telecommunications stuff. And so he needed to run cable underwater. And there's a famous test where both Sam Colt and Morse were trying to get investors for his technology. And so they set up a thing where they were going to communicate between an island and the mainland. It was an in Lake Island. I can't remember which one now. And they set everything up overnight. And then the next day it was a complete disaster because it didn't work. Well, what they didn't know is that a fisherman overnight had been dredging and just hit the cable and was like, what is this? He starts pulling it up and he keeps pulling up and he goes, to hell with this, and he cuts it. And then that's why that's why Morse had a setback on the first go and couldn't get funding for another 5 years or whatever it was. And it was him and Samuel Colt going, who the heck cut our cable?
Some dude in the middle of the night.
I love that human endeavor was set back 5 years because some jerk's just what is this?
Well, I mean, you think about all the military testing and how things have got set back. I mean, you know how cool it would be to have a Savage in 45 because they didn't pass the trial. Yeah. I mean, there's
you say that it'd be cool because it's a failure.
They're massive.
Yes. At the time, they're just like, this thing sucks. So the problem is, it's just they have high points in 45. Go nuts, Bo, because it's going to be the same experience.
Well, there's all those things that the Luger in 45 that made the first trials that everyone's like, oh, I want one, and then.
My favorite is everybody wants the 45 Luger, and they're like, oh yeah, it didn't work. It didn't. No, it worked great. We wanted them to come back and do it again, and Luger went, no, we're so tired of spending money on you. You're going to make it. This is actually a funny thing because it's very comparable to what we had with 40 Smith & Wesson, because everything goes in circles, right? So the Luger is in a 30 caliber cartridge, and they're like, oh, can we make it bigger? And it's like, well, we could kind of straight wall it, and that'll give us 9mm. And so just as a kludge, you end up with 9mm parabellum. The 9mm parabellum exists because it's I guess we could do that. And then they're trying to sell it to the U.S. and they're trying to do anything they can to get a cartridge that the U.S. would accept. But the U.S. is like, no, we want 45 ACP, essentially, with a precursor to that. And they're going, if we do that, we have to build a whole new frame. Everything has to be new tooling. So we're going to have to run a separate assembly line just for this little country. I mean, it's big geographically, but at the time it was a small market. Because for Germany, they had conscription. So the numbers of handguns that Germany needed at the time compared to the U.S. is astronomically different. So they're going, the German army just bought these things from us. We don't have to play around with America. We're going to sell 2,000, 20,000 at most. Where are we at? We don't know if we're going to get the contract. They clearly favor their own guns. This Browning guy's ripping us off at this point because he was, let's be honest. That's the thing that makes people it's not Browning so much as Colt, but the Colt 1911 is clearly derivative of the Luger on the bottom half. You can look at, we actually have a whole series on this where we approached it, but the lock work, the slide, that's all Browning. But the bottom half of that gun, it's did it come up with a grip safety and a raked grip and a thumb depressible magazine release?
Where
did I see all that before? 1900.
I don't know.
Oh, that's right. It was the Luger.
What do you mean? The thumb safety and everything?
It's almost like it took on all the best features of its chief competitor in order to win the trial, but also had a superior lock breech system.
How ingenious.
How dare they?
Yeah. But no, so the problem is Luger's like, we don't want to make two sizes of frame, which is what we ran into with 10 millimeter, where it's like, everybody's like, hey, can we get 10 millimeter? And they're like, we'll have to make two sizes, well, three sizes, because then it would have been 45, 9 millimeter, and 10 millimeter.
No.
And so all the group of companies got together and were like, can we just make like 10 millimeter light that'll fit in a 9 millimeter frame? And then everybody's just like, yeah, we'll tell them it's a good idea. And then everybody ran with it for about 10 years and then, wait, this was awful. Why did we do that?
I still... 40's dead. I'm saying it right now. 40 is dead.
Smith & Wesson?
Anybody who wants 40 Smith & Wesson should rethink their thought process.
The funniest part is that was done before. When the U.S. Army Colt brought a 9mm 38 Colt. There's 38 ACP, not 380. They brought a 38 Colt in the original Browning lock breech pistols. And the Army says, we want 45. And they're just like, what's the most we could do without changing the frame? And they got 40. They tried doing a 41 and it just wasn't working. But it's the same thing all over again. So it's 40 Smith & Wesson 100 years before 40 Smith & Wesson. Like, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, we got a 9. How close can we get to this number? It's like, we could do 41, which is technically a 40. Like, isn't it weird how it's just like, it's cyclical?
Well, it's weird. Just like, what was it? The Prohibition, the Colt came out with the 38 Super.
Right.
And everyone's like, why 38 Super? Well, because it goes through car doors. How did it go through car doors? Because it was faster.
Right.
And they were like, okay. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, you could have just done that to begin with.
Well,
sort of.
It's the same thing like in Europe. I'm going to say it now. I watch a lot of your stuff. So
I'm sorry.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, but just like in Europe, we're talking about everybody, when the 9mm came out, everyone's like, oh, 9mm. And then there's the Italians who are like, well, we want 9mm. We want it to feel like 9mm, but our guns can't handle it. So we're going to underpower it. And then if you grab the wrong ammo, it blows up.
Well, sort of. That was complete corruption. So the man behind the Glicenti pistol he was part of the trials board that was assessing it. And so he's like, don't put my name on that. We'll call it the Glicenti. He licensed it to Glicenti. So Glicenti's calling it the Glicenti pistol, but it's actually this guy. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm going to vote yes on my own design without telling anybody I'm getting royalties on it. And so the problem is they get to the end and they're just like, okay, but the Germans have 9mm Parabellum. Can we do that? And they're just like, yes. No, but they're going to say yes.
Yeah, they're going to say yes.
So they did the exact same chambering, but when it came time to do the ammo, they're just like, let's dial the powder back a little bit. Let's dial it back a little bit.
Don't tell anybody. Just not tell anyone.
What bull. Like, I mean, and then you have this huge problem later on because of it. People not knowing what to put and where and guns getting torn up. And it's just like, they don't blow up, but they just beat themselves to death. Were
people trying to do that with Villaparosas, I want to say?
I've definitely seen a Villaparosa that was suffering from running 9mm Parabellum too often, especially because the loads have changed over time too. That's the other thing is
those Sears can't handle that.
We have a friend with an MP18 that we used on the show, and it's just like, yeah, you better put 124 grains in there because that's the closest you're going to get to the old truncated cone. And even then, it doesn't feed quite the same because nobody does truncated cone 9mm anymore. You know, the shapes are different, and it's kind of a hard thing because people are like, why don't you do ballistics gel tests? I'm going because I can't get like the exact same dimension Malachor jacket with cordite powder that burns at a very specific weird rate. So I'm going to give you a really bizarre approximation of what that cartridge can do, not the actual performance of that cartridge at that time. So
yeah, I mean, there's a ton of weird, and I guess I blame you for this, and I don't really blame you, but I watched was it the FN 1903 video. I walked into a gun shop and they had a Husqvarna sitting there in 380 because why convert it from? And I was like, I know what that is. I'm buying it right now because it's cheap, and I know that when people start watching Othais' videos, the prices are going to go up.
Did you get it?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Did you shoot?
Yes.
Oh,
and
awesome.
380 shoots fantastic.
That's good.
It's one of my
shoots better in
favorite
380 than it does in the original cartridge.
It does,
what
actually.
was the original cartridge?
It's like 9. They call it 9 Browning, but it was just sort of like a long, not 38 AC. It's like somewhere between. I don't know. It's another. They call it 9 Browning. It's another 9x20ish, vaguely similar. This is the problem in that era that you have all these 9mm cartridges, and this is what people don't understand. 9mm
wasn't it like semi-rimmed too, or something like that?
I don't remember now.
I think so.
There's so many compare because you got like Largo and Browning, and then like the Roth cartridges that are around at the time.
Yeah,
and then I mean, like technically Largo is a Piper cartridge, and then you have 38 ACP 9mm Parabellum. Steyr's doing their own 9mm. And really, like 9mm Parabellum tends to win out because of A, how many guns were available from the German army, but B, it is shorter cased, so therefore you can have a more favorable grip. So Largo, I think, was sort of the last fighter in that category where Largo held out for a little bit because of Spanish endeavors, but it's longer, so it makes the
Spanish were producing a ton of them
more
in Largo,
difficult.
so I could see how they would be the competitor with that.
Having a shorter length case in a gun that feeds through the grip is kind of important for keeping those ergonomics clean.
Fair.
Well, it just makes me laugh. Like I showed somebody my FN, and they're like, "Oh, it's just a Colt 19." I'll go, "No, it's not a Colt. It is a Colt 1903, but it's not a Colt 1903. It's an FN 1903."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Who made it?" I'm like, "Husqvarna." They're like, "The chainsaw people." I'm like, "Yes."
I got a chainsaw to match it.
They made guns. Yeah.
My thing that makes me really mad is the Norwegians almost adopted like the Colt. Oh God, I want to say the 1902 military model with some changes in like 38 ACP, and then there was even a brief debate about doing essentially like the model 1910 that came right before the 1911, getting that in sort of a 9mm caliber, and then sort of things got stalled off. And next thing you know, they just had to buy the 1911. So the Norwegians end up with their own version of the 1911. But there's almost a period in which Norway adopted like the Colt 1902.
Were they going to go with like the nail file checkering?
No, they were going to do like the updated version that was available.
I like the nail file.
Because they were doing it way late. The 1911 was already kind of coming out the door when the Norwegians were assessing all the way back to the 1902. And they're like, no, this is great. We like this. And then, you know, the poor...
That would have been interesting to see if they had some 1910s, though, because there's never been more of them in the world.
It's this whole fight, and the poor guys are like, can we just buy this now? And they're like, no, we don't make that anymore. We're making this. And they hand them like a 45 ACP, and they go, oh my God. Because the entire argument in Norway up to that point was, again, 9mm versus 45. And so they finally settled on 9mm and all this other stuff, and they go, okay, can we buy it? And they're like, no, we only have this in 45. And they went, crap, because it started the whole problem over again of 9mm 45.
It's like, well, that case was closed.
But they were doing interesting things. They were shooting, they came up with some contraption to shoot like a bucket full, because they were worried about the, you know, everybody talks about, what is it? Hydra crap. My brain's locked out.
Hydrostatic shock?
Yeah, hydrostatic shock.
Oh, okay.
So they were kind of obsessed with the same thing. So they were like shooting into buckets of water to see how much water splashed out, like to try to get an idea of how much displacement they were getting for velocity versus mass. Like they were doing all sorts of weird experiments around
How do
that.
you scientifically test?
But that's the whole problem. Hydrostatic shock is like a really hard thing to. I mean, look at what's big now is these like ballistic shell dummies with stuff in them. So everybody's sort of always chasing the how do I do sort of terminal performance without actually terminating anybody? Because everybody gets mad when you start slaughtering livestock like we did during the.
I was just going to
They totally did, yeah.
During the pistol trials, the U.S. was like, hey, 45 killed cows better. We're going to go with that.
Dude,
Oh, yeah.
those trials are. Don't read them. Don't read
They're
them.
so bad.
It's
Yeah.
just like you just shoot an animal once and then just count how many hours it takes for it to die. I mean, it's just awful. Ugh.
You had to read through them extensively for the episode.
And then the
research.
worst, like we get so much trouble. They did it in Europe too. There's all these terrible experiments in Europe. It's just, especially because in Europe they were trying to justify smaller calibers, so they would just do terrible animal experiments and then be like, "Well, it died." And
I think
like, how many hours?
I think Ballistol still has the best animal experiments where they're just like, no, we just put it in the bellies of all the animals and they all just passed it.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, we took on Ballistol as a sponsor because we were already using them.
Yeah.
And we were doing some old reading, and it's like in their own literature. And it's kind of poorly translated from German to English, so it's even funnier. But in the literature, they're talking about the non-toxicity because Ballistol is derived from a medical oil, so it's extremely safe for human skin. As a matter of fact, it is an antibiotic, essentially.
Yes.
Except they can't market it that way because it's not FDA approved in the US for that use. They have a product that is, but that's a separate thing because they don't want to go through it for every batch of what's supposed to be a gun oil. But if you were out in the woods and you needed an antibiotic that is not...
It's mild, but it can do.
I may keep a can of Ballistol in my bag just for
Use
that
the
reason.
wipes. The wipes are really
the
good.
wipes
The
for
wipes
it.
are
really
great.
Yeah.
The wipes are awesome too because for not everybody, for a lot of people, if you get like a bunch of mosquito bites and they're itching, the wipes tend to get the itching to go down a good bit, but you're kind of oily. So,
But no, talk about the animals.
I'm sorry. So
That was what I was thinking about.
there's a quote in there like we fed Ballistol to lab mice, but the way they said it's like we filled the mouse's entire intestines with Ballistol, and I'm like, how did you know that you filled its entire intestine? But anyway, so then it's like, and then after it had some mild discomfort passing the Ballistol, and you're like, was it an enema? I don't understand what's going on. But apparently, like they filled a mouse live mouse with ballistol, and then the mouse passed all the ballistol, and it's like, other than seem to be uncomfortable, it was fine. And it lived a normal life. And you're just like, okay, so you could just do that and you probably won't die.
Well, we were talking earlier. There's the guy on YouTube who does a history of companies and how he was talking about Zeiss. And Zeiss, what do you make? Oh, we make really nice optics and crystal. And they're like, what did you do between 39 and 45? And they're like, we don't have. Zeiss removed that history from their website.
Oh,
I
they all
believe
do.
that. Yeah.
It's because nobody wants to be associated. It's this association game, which I find really frustrating because I don't really like forbidden knowledge. Things happen. You can talk about them. Just because you don't have to agree with everything a government or a people are doing to understand that they invented a Volkswagen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
That's where it came from. If it's an efficiency that we can then... The idea that you should throw away all knowledge gained from a bad situation means that you're ultimately wasting the sacrifices of other people. Like, at least take something good away from it. You know what I mean? So ballistol emerged, I want to say around 1904, and was used through World War I and World War II. It was the oil for the German army. As a matter of fact, the U.S. almost adopted it, but World War I broke out while we were testing it. But there's actually ordnance notes of ballistol being absolutely superior to everything we had available in the U.S. at the time. So U.S. Ordnance was just about to try to purchase and arrange manufacture their own product. And then World War II starts heating up and they're like, uh-oh. And then we never really got ballistol. So it is still a very extremely good product because it's safe for human skin and all other stuff. But one of my favorite things is sort of in the interwar period, it became sort of a panacea because it was derived from medical oil. So there was a medically marketed version of ballistol that people were taking for stomach issues. And Hitler notoriously had stomach issues. So he was consuming so much ballistol that it was affecting his vision eventually. Because I mean, too much of anything's bad,
Yeah, right.
Like, so he was consuming way too much ballistol. And so his doctor took him off the ballistol because of the headaches or vision or whatever the issue was. And then that caused his stomach cramps and pain to come back. So, I mean, maybe if we just let Hitler keep his ballistol, maybe things would have been
he just needed it in smaller doses.
Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody needed to regulate
all
Hitler's
I'm saying
doses.
is we took away Hitler's ballistol, and next thing you know...
Look, just don't give him the whole bottle. Give him half a bottle. Why do we have to give him a whole bottle? He's Hitler. He's not going to know how to take the whole bottle.
Yeah.
He thought he knew better than everybody, so...
He really did.
We were
Hitler
one gun
doesn't
move
half
away from
bottle
just
it.
having
He
world
whole
peace.
bottles
Right?
it.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we see in history with at least with gun technology is the amount of copying or licensed copies, or as in for the Spanish non-licensed copies.
Well, sort of. It was legal in their country.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
So
It's fine.
Some of my favorites are like World War II movies, all of them using stars.
Oh, yeah. Because that's
and
what
Model Bs because they're cheap.
Well, the funnier thing is in the U.S., there's a lot of sort of war movies during World War I, like silent films or early sound or whatever. And Charlie Chaplin is famously in one, which is even weirder to see.
Right.
But because of all the arms being sent to the front, the only thing that they could lay hands on that was a magazine repeater were Krags. So you have all these war movies in black and white where they're just running around with Krags in the trenches. And especially with Charlie Chaplin is even funnier because you're like, what is going on? And then you still see it. I think Hogan's Heroes still had Krag Jorgensens in the hands of like German prisoner of war camp guards. And you're going, oh my God. And my favorite thing about the collector's world is people trying to justify that. And like, well, Germans did capture some Krags and blah, blah. And you're like, it's a TV show. We really don't need to try to shoehorn this into being a reality.
Also, why would they go with that when it's not the ammo they were using then?
Well, to be fair, prison guard is a good use of people that don't need to shoot a lot of ammo.
That's a good point,
But it'd be more
actually.
likely they have Mosins or something, just sort of being like, okay, just use some of this.
The other thing we touched on Battlefield 1, so I got to bring it up. There's a lot of video games, especially World War II, World War I related, that have guns that weren't really used or were just concepts. So we see, like, what was it, the Italian submachine gun? What was it?
Villa Perosa?
Yeah, the Villa Perosa.
I mean, they were around.
And then the other one was the...
There was another one that they had in there, though.
They had a ton of stuff in
Yeah.
there. They had a bunch of weird prototype stuff in there. Battlefield 1 suffers from the fact that they're trying to do like the Battlefield 3 formula, where it's like, okay, we got these classes. The class comes with this kind of like, it has to have this fire rate with this distance with this sort of power per round is the vague category that they've created for themselves. So then when they look at World War I, they go, oh, that's not really how World War One was actually more in terms of small arms. It was very symmetrical, and then it became weirdly asymmetrical towards the end. And there's not as much to pull on the Axis side as what you'd want. There's definitely not as much to pull from sort of the lower powers as you'd want. It's only really the US and Germany that are doing super weird stuff. Maybe a little France in there, a little bit of Britain. But, you know, Italy's got some oddball that you can pick from, but it's not enough where you can go, okay, everyone's going to get this submachine gun class. And you're like, there's literally one. Like there's
just one.
There's technically like 4 submachine guns, but in terms of ever finding one on the front line, there's either this dual barrel 2-man thing, or there's this thing that Germany came out in the last couple months of the war.
Right.
And that's really about it. I mean, yes, the OVP existed, but who the heck knows if you ever saw one on the front line.
Did Battlefield ever have more than one anti-tank rifle in there other than the
No, I think it's just the Tigewehr.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is fair, but they only needed one. It was a special class.
They had 2 in Battlefield 5.
I haven't played 5 at all, to be honest. I played 1 just to try it out.
I played 2 minutes of it, and then I decided that was enough.
5 kind of took it to a whole new level. It's like everybody, the stuff that people complain about in Battlefield 1, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to do it harder. And then, wasn't it 5 the one they're like, if you don't like it, don't buy it. And then nobody bought it. Like,
oh, yeah. That was funny.
Like, it's weird, but they want to treat history as a playground, which is great. Just make it, I've always said, make it 1946. Like with Battlefield 1, I always said, just make it 1919. You know, just pretend the war kept going, then you can shovel anything you want in there. But they want to play this game of like legitimacy and entertainment at the same time. And you're like,
legitimately, when I shoot in Battlefield 1, sometimes I shoot the whole cartridge, like case and all at once.
Is that about the artillery shells?
Oh my God, that was so funny. I captured a screenshot of that way back in the day.
I just want to know who was running around with the Calibri.
Oh, yeah. I want to know I really want to know who came up with the gun choices for that game, because the Hellriegel is sort of the most famous one, the Austrian belt-fed submachine gun.
Yeah.
Because they included that in game, and when I saw it, I went, this is very surprising to me, because I only knew about it because I manually went through an Italian archive of captured Austrian documents, and that's where I first saw it. And I still don't know what book or website or whatever referenced it, that this guy, whoever was in charge of picking their designs, he came across it. And it's been come acrossable for 100 years. That's fine. But where did he see it?
You kind of want to talk with him and just be like, so,
did
hey,
he
man,
literally go to the same Italian archive I did? Or did he?
Wasn't there one where there was just one picture of somebody shooting the gun and they made a model out of it?
The Hellriegel, there's essentially 2 pictures of the Hellriegel. There's one of it sitting on a table with its drum sort of set aside so you could see that it has sort of a chain link feed or a weird feed. I don't know that it's chain link. I have to go back and look at it now, to be honest with you. It's been a while. It has a sort of weird belt system. But then there's a picture of a guy holding it. So there's actually like 1/4 of the gun we don't have any photos of, but you can kind of make some inferences. But the problem is, looking at it, it's very hard to determine what the internals would actually be. It seems to be sort of like a double return spring setup, maybe, but we're not really sure. But yeah, the Hellriegel was the one that they cloned out, which I thought was fascinating because I don't know of an extant copy of that gun. We just have the photos of it existing in Austria at the time. I'm sure it sucked. Like the fact that we don't see it ever again probably means that it didn't work very well. And looking at it, it looks very convoluted for what it's doing. But
well, see, what made me I play a lot of Battlefield 5.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I know. What made me really mad is they have an achievement. They're like, oh, you have to kill so many enemies with allied powered weapons. So I'm using a jungle carbine, and they're like, oh, that doesn't count. Why does it not count? They're like, well, you can use the Mark V, you can use the 1928 Thompson, or you can use an 03, but you can't use the jungle carbine, even though it's a derivative of the first one. But no, because it's a jungle carbine, it doesn't count. I was so mad because I said,
wait,
I'm
very
weird.
confused. So you're talking about that you can use like a number 4 Mark 1?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I haven't even played the game. I don't know what guns are in 5. I stopped paying attention after Battlefield 1.
There's a lot of like weird junk. I mean, just like they had an original. They have the M2 is in there, which was not widely used.
Right.
They have an M1 carbine with an old school original concept night vision scope.
Right.
They have jungle carbines in there. They've got the Johnson in there, which was not very widespread.
Right. It was stolen from the Dutch. Yeah. But yeah.
And then they have like all these different Like there's a Japanese submachine gun that I didn't even know about that's in there.
Other than it's not a Type 100 or whatever.
No, I think it wasn't the Type 100. It looks kind of like a bullpup, but it's got like the magazine is long.
Oh, I know. Actually, weirdly know which one you're talking about. Yeah. I can't remember the name of it now, but yeah, not really.
There's a lot of that's the thing. There's so much weaponry during World War II too,
right.
But they've picked out like the really like for some reason the rubies in it. I'm like, why is it?
I mean, there were a bunch laying around, but why not just reskin it to be a unique?
Yeah.
That would make more sense.
Yeah.
But it was just so many weird. The only cool thing about it is that if you use an M1 Garand in that game
right.
and you reload too quickly,
yeah,
you get Garand Thumb.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
It's got the animation put in.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
But in theory, it shouldn't really. Well, yeah, I'd have to see the animation, but.
It's every once in a while that if you reload too quickly, you put in and then you hear your player start screaming ow ow ow, and I was like, what the heck is that? And then I look down and his thumb is in the action and he's like trying to yank it out.
We haven't done the Garen yet, but I wonder how much that was really happening, because when they're fresh, they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to actually lock open. But then as they got older, they don't do it. I
could put on some gloves and we could try it.
No, I'm not sticking.
Well,
mine actually, weirdly, the one I have doesn't eat people. It's pretty good about locking open.
Yeah, I remember I've shot that before.
Although the gas tube was messed up. Yeah. So,
well, that's the other thing. Like guns, I wish somebody would bring back some retro World War II production guns.
The problem is we can't. It's lost technology.
Is that what it
really is? The milling. Again, it's an economy of scale. First of all, let's be fair to the people. So everybody says they want we'll go simpler, Type 1 AKs. Yeah. Everybody wants a Type 1 AK. The Russians didn't want the Type 1 AK because it was the whole point was to be this folded, mass-produced whatever. And it turned out that what they were getting for the effort they were putting in wasn't worth it, and they had to move over to milled whatever, right? And a lot of this stuff that we see in terms of, think about Lee Enfields, is extremely painfully difficult to make a Lee Enfield the correct way, because when they tried to do it in Canada, they just gave up and went to the number 4. They went, by the time we spin somebody up and have this sort of inherited knowledge of how to get this process done just right, we should pick a different gun. And so you have the sort of simplified number 4 version of Lee Enfield. It's the same problem. Everybody's like, "Oh, Lugers are so expensive. I want them to bring back the Luger."
Do you know how much that would cost to be more expensive?
We still have not hit peak Luger. Like, this is the funny thing is the talent, the knowledge pool and talent and the industrial capacity is diminishing.
Right.
At a rate higher than the cost rising on the originals. Because to go back and have that reproduction made, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars to have a brand new one. You could spend thousands of dollars on an original one. It's actually got the history. Right. That's always the problem. I run into a lot of guys that have tried to do this. I mean, I've been friends with guys that have tried reproductions. And unless you can sort of build them with existing parts kits and you're only building part of the gun and the rest of it's stuff that you're making that you find, then you're kind of stuck, you know? And any compromise you make on the design is going to infuriate the core people that want to buy it anyway. So when you try to make it in 9mm instead of 30 carbine or whatever, some people are happy about that, but you better have a low enough price point because no one's going to spend big money to have it not be exactly right.
Well, I'm just surprised nobody's done the Garand yet. And
there's too many in the market, though. I don't think we reached saturation. No, because what's the Garand go for now? Like
12, 13, 1400 bucks, I think.
Nowhere near. It costs you more than that to make one. Because look at what's it cost for? Look at DSA. They do the FAL.
Yeah.
DSA FALs are somewhere in that same price range at the low end, and then the cool stuff is getting into the 2000s. It's going to cost you at least that much, and especially the wood. Nobody can do wood right anymore. There's no old growth walnut available anymore. Like, you know what the cost is on that wood now, and then trying to make it, and then also a lot of it's sort of the final hand fitting on the wood. So your labor cost is going to be huge to do wood. That's why nobody does it. And then I got guys that do reproduction stocks. Some of you might have noticed there's been reproduction Krag Jorgensen stocks finally available on like eBay and stuff like that. That's a friend of mine that's actually been doing that project. And he's still like trying to get it even better. He's getting it closer and closer to the original, but they can't get good old dark American walnut. You're going to have to stain it to kind of look like that. You're not going to be able to have, I mean, you can get American walnut, but it's not going to be as tight of a grain pattern. It's not going to be, because how do you get it at an economical price?
That's the same issue I ran into. I bought a Enfield 1917 in 30-06, and
Right.
it was sporterized, which I was like, oh, why? But so I went, I found the original lower stock.
Right.
I could not find the handguards.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I'm like, I want to make this period correct. They had already cut off the ears. And so trying to find those to match is just a pain in the butt.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we were talking about I've spent years putting back together a Remington Model 10 trench gun, and I got very lucky to find the pieces for it.
But that has been years.
Yeah, it was, and that's like, look, I have a part-time job of just looking at auctions and stuff that go by with a very keen eye, and so it's most people can't commit those kind of hours like I have had to do.
Right.
Well, and that's what I love about collecting, because you find things that are sporterized and you want to bring them back, but you can't. But then you find things that are in original condition. We were talking downstairs. I bought a Carcano, a 1918 Carcano Trip Special with the ladder sights, and I started cleaning it up, and somebody had lost the original front sight and just shoved a piece of brass in there. And I've got
that's at least an easy repair.
Yeah, it's an easy repair. But I've got two Carcanos. I've tried to collect as much as I can, because when you find them for a good price, that's when you jump on them. But then even I bought a Arasaka Type 99, and I'm looking at the dates on it, trying to look it up. I'm like, please don't be a last ditch. Please don't be a last ditch. And I pull it up, and it's like, okay, so this happened. This was first of the last ditch in 44 before they went to the last of the last ditch. I'm like, oh, okay, it's still good. And then trying to find ammo.
Yeah.
It's just such a.
Hey, at least you can make that out of 30-06 though. 7.7.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the 7.7 is easier to make than some of the other cartridges, but you're gonna have to make it.
I'm gonna have to make it.
Hand loading's huge now, actually, because of you think about it, manufacturing capacity has been deeply limited by the production of primers, and so you only have so many primers. I assume that regulation around opening a new primer facility is what's really killing it, because that is an explosive. It's not like everything's a gunpowder, and you're like, no. Primers are sensitive. That's the tap and boom. So transporting, manufacturing, all that stuff, that's the big risk.
That's gotta be crazy.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta ask this question. One from each of you.
Okay.
Any gun that's not produced anymore, what would you bring back if money was not a cost? What would you bring back
to the commercial market or for myself?
for yourself?
For myself, I could just have it, an
Just have
original
it.
one.
Not original or non. Just bring back and make it yours.
I would probably do a Colt 1910 just so we can have the damn photography, so we can have the complete collection of the
I mean,
Colt
we could borrow
1911
one.
series.
We know where one is now.
I mean, now.
We went looking for a Colt 1910, and after a week after the episode was in the bag, I got an email being like, "Hey, what's this?" I went, "Oh my god, it's a Colt 1910. Why? I've spent 3 years looking for this, and somebody asked me what it is a week after we make the episode. That made me so mad."
It's okay. We're going to go out there at some point.
Yeah, and then
But me personally, oh, it'd be so satisfying. Also, it's a
I don't
really
even know
crazy
what gun
rare and
you want the
expensive.
most of all the guns anyway.
What's that?
Your one that got away?
One that got away.
Yeah, we actually saw an auction. We might have been able to bid on it, but then we had the land stuff come up and everything.
Yeah, I kind of want a Tigaver.
May has never gotten over the Tigaver.
It made an impact in more ways than one, but it was.
It's because you're a little boy and it's the biggest gun.
It was the biggest gun. It's the dumbest gun because it's literally just a Car 98. Someone just went control and just stretched it out, and then that's pretty much what they have.
Just a
But single
real
shot.
big bolt action.
Yeah, it's stupid and funny.
To be
and
fair,
I
it was
love
designed as a hedge. They were trying to make an automatic version out of a Maxim, and they're like, "Well, if this takes too long, we need something in between." It's just like, okay, just make a big Mauser. And they did. They just made a big Mauser.
I don't know what yours would be off the top of my head.
You don't know?
Weirdly, no, because I'm thinking about it, and it could be something. It's probably a revolver.
There's definitely.
It's probably a revolver. Oh, it is.
I can't say what I'd actually want because then somebody else might find it. But that's the problem when it gets down to there's more to known that are floating out there, but they're unknown. It's one of those things I know what it is. There's a number of firearms I've found that nobody's looking for, and then we do an episode and everybody's like, "That was a thing," and you're like, "Yeah." It turns out that was a thing. And there's a few little pieces that fall into the cracks that I'm looking for from very obscure countries that hopefully I'll just find them and I can have them. But in the meantime, I will say what I would love to get my hands on is a Fedorov automat to actually shoot, because that is a very interesting. It's the right crux of interesting, obscure, and yet really well known. So it's hard to find. There's only a couple of examples. As a matter of fact, the one that there's supposedly one in the U.S. that was part of, I believe, the Aberdeen collection that has just gone missing. In terms of all the curators I know, everybody that I've made contact with, no one knows where that gun went.
That's in Grandpa's basement
and yet
somewhere.
it was known to be in inventory in the U.S. at some point. And I'm like, can I get my hands on that? It's like,
or Grandpa's bunker.
Nobody knows where it went. So I'm probably going to have to go to Russia to lay hands on one. And I doubt that that's going to happen anytime soon with the way things are. And I'd love to shoot one just because it is sort of a first for a lot of things. It also has extremely bizarre lock work. There is, if anybody wants to see it, there is a YouTube channel in Russian that just did a video with an author named Chumak.
Yeah, you did just show
Chumak
that.
is a wonderful writer on Russian firearms history because he doesn't...
It's all in Russian.
Reading about Russian firearms history has always been difficult because it's so politicized, and this guy sort of cut through a lot of that, and he's actually gotten down to the bare bones of why. So after doing CN Arsenal for like almost 10 years, I finally found a man who just recently wrote a book, like a year ago, on the Mosins that actually explains why the Mosin is the way it is. Because I couldn't, in English, there was no answer. People would say stuff, but it was observational. It wasn't causal. You know, it wasn't like, here's the why. It was just sort of, this is the what. And so this guy finally gives me the why, and I go, oh my God, that makes so much more sense.
There's a man over in Russia that you love, and he has no idea.
Yeah, and I really hate to do this because I can't remember the exact name of the channel. It's like either Hex Tactical or Hexagon Tactical. It's something like that, but it's a Russian channel. I apologize. I'll have to tell you later so that you can put it in the notes or something. But they do take apart a Fedorov in detail.
That's really
and unfortunately,
cool.
it's all in English. It's in Russian, but you can put the subtitles to English. And I'd love to get a hold of one that's do a proper animation on it, proper teardown and actual
to make
demonstration.
Bruno cry.
Actually, it wouldn't be that bad. It's a fairly sensible gun in some ways. It just it didn't last.
Yeah.
But
now the next question that I've got for both of you is what gun inventor or what gun was made before its time, and if it was made today, it would do well.
Oh, today?
Yeah, if it was made to in general, let's just say
today's technology, though.
Well, let's just say
I don't know.
general.
I feel like you could say before its time. Definitely, I can name a couple. But to be fair, all of it would exist by today, so I can't really say because now we know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We've either ignored it or not. You could. I guess that would be a different question of like what's the most underappreciated thing. But,
Yeah.
But the who was the most ahead of their time?
There were some triple action revolvers that were done
All the way back,
yeah.
in like, pre-Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
The Beaumont was a pretty smart gun.
That's a pretty good
but
one.
it couldn't keep up with itself. I would say actually, there's a number of like piston operated mitrailleuse, sort of mechanical, like the Gatling gun kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there was a number of guys. Maxim's the most famous, but there's guys trying to do self-loading technology before smokeless. And so smokeless became this big thing. So it's kind of hard to pin it down to one design because there's actually there's 20, 30 years of people knowing how to make a machine gun, but they can't technologically because black powder is just gumming it up. So they could make some cool stuff, but it would jam up after like 50 or 100 rounds or 200 rounds, which is still not enough for a machine gun, you know?
Right.
So it's hard to pin it down to one design because of that. But boy, the number of people that had machine guns figured out before the powder technology caught up is absolutely wild. And a lot of people don't understand this. Smokeless powder did not happen overnight in the sense that somebody just invented smokeless powder. I've locked on his name. Lebel. Lebel cooked up a method for observing the detonation of the powder and the pressure curve from the powder over time. So before it's like, oh, we put it in a case, we squeeze it down, we light it off, it goes boom, this is how much boom we get. And he managed to ascribe the boom over time. So you get, sharp initial boom and then the pressure falls, or you get like heavy, you get light pressure at the beginning and there's a spike in the middle, but then you have this sort of falling pressure. The point is he could track the curve of the pressure in the chamber. And then that allowed him to rapidly run through a bunch of combinations of like nitrocellulose and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it let him sort of hone in, and he did what would have taken another 50 to 100 years inside of like months. And then boom, you get... So we were always trending to smokeless powder because we were making powders more efficient, but we were doing this sort of by the trial and error. And then all of a sudden he could just rapidly isolate segments of it. And then boom, overnight you do this rapid advancement because you can now observe what you're doing.
Right.
So...
Well, that brings up another good question, because you guys deal with so much throughout the years. What caliber should be brought back? there's dead now.
Oh, I have deep opinions on this.
You do have a lot of deep opinions. There's a lot of
that's
intermediary
interesting, 'cause
cartridges.
We
you
see
love.
a lot of cartridges like. There's cartridges that you could argue like, okay, it's 7.7 Japanese, it's 6.5 Creedmoor kind of thing.
Sort of, it's like a 303 rimless, but yeah.
35 Remington.
But
it's still around technically, but I think it's underappreciated.
Yeah.
I agree. May and I are big fans of 35 Remington as a North American game cartridge, and also like
It's pretty dang decent.
it's just weird because like everybody's pushing 300 blackout and stuff, and I know why, because it's the whole 40 Smith & Wesson again.
Yeah.
Like I make people mad, but I'm like 300 blackout is the 40 Smith & Wesson of ARs. Sorry, like you're just trying to get away with the same manufacturing. Only unlike 40 Smith & Wesson, you can cause some severe problems with that cartridge.
Yeah, you can.
It's like even when they did 38 special, they tried to make it so that you couldn't put it in a 38 Smith & Wesson. 300 blackout just sends it, you know.
Oh yeah.
But the one I favor. Oh god, my mind just went blank on this for a second. I had it right in my head.
7.7 Jap.
No, it's actually the other sort of turn of the century. Well, early automatic cartridge. I don't know that I specifically would say I want 351 Winchester back. Specifically that cartridge, but I think that's the gap in the market right now, and I think a lot of that actually comes down to the NFA.
What do you mean gap in the market?
We need a sort of 30-35 caliber intermediate cartridge that is not quite throwing it, because in the current market we have 7.62 by 39 is sort of the closest to that, but it's still, if you shoot AK pistols, you know what I mean. It's still not exactly what you'd want out of it, but it's sort of we've really become obsessed with pistol caliber carbines, but pistol caliber carbines are a little too pipsqueaky.
Right.
And then you go up to a full intermediate and it's like, this is a little bit hot and we need the locking action.
So you're just looking for something that's solid in the middle.
Yeah, I think if you had sort
Between
of,
those two.
if you have like a radial delay or a roller delay and you have a sub 7.62 35 caliber, like if it's going a little slower but it's a little beefier, that being a sort of a man slapper or even for a lot of game is going to be great. It's going to be pretty flexible for moderate game and human targets, which is what people tend to think of as in terms of defensive. I think
I'd say that's moderate game.
I like pistol caliber carbines, but I feel like we're missing just a little bit of something. And people like 30 carbine. You know, people love M1 carbines, love them to death. Where's that energy? You know what I mean? Where's this sort of like better than pistol but not quite rifle cartridge? It's sort of vanished. We don't have one in that category right now that I can think of.
The only one I can think of, no, because it's not even that. Because technically, 350 Legend would be more of a 9mm Maxim kind of.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be applied that way. But you don't see it. You're not going to PSA and getting something chambered in that for like $700.
Right.
I feel like the market could stand to have a. Personally, I get a lot of flack because I like the Kel-Tec Sub 2000. There's problems with it. There's problems with it. I've broken one before. But conceptually, this sort of fold-away, efficient blowback design is great. And if you could get something like that had just a little bit of a delay in it and a slightly more powerful cartridge so that you could displace, say, a service rifle-sized thing, then for most people in a home defense scenario, that and some hollow point, something that's compatible with hollow point too would be really good. Then in a home defense scenario, you're looking pretty good, you know? But I think we're sort of geared to think in terms of either rifle, carbine, or pistol, and then we already have our categories for that because we derive all of them from. This is another thing: is these days we derive a lot of our civilian cartridges from the military, whereas before it used to be the other way around. The civilian market would create cartridges, and the military would sort of look at them and then either adapt them or make their own. Now we tend to think in terms. Most of the guys out there that are shooting 9mm Parabellum. They're shooting, NATO cartridges. They're shooting, Soviet cartridges that have held over. And we're starting to see it. We're starting to see, you just said Legend and stuff like that. People are starting to wildcat again. But it's more individually driven instead of business driven. You don't have any companies trying to do. I mean, not none. But you don't see this big market thing where
there's no big market push for it.
Yeah, you'd have to see it'd be the equivalent of Glock coming out with 35 Glock all of a sudden. But that's what they used to do. They used to just come out with their own cartridge.
What about 30 Super Carry?
That's new. That's actually, we can compare it to previous cartridges like everybody likes to do, but that is actually a new concept. I don't know that everybody was that, people got kind of into it for a second, but then I think everybody kind of backed off because I don't know that it had the utility point we thought, because 9mm subcompacts are actually doing pretty well right now.
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing I can think of when they came out with that was, okay, you're trying to hit a market where you can't sell military cartridges.
Right.
That made the most sense to me, and it just didn't seem to kind of take off from where it was.
This also kind of touches on what we started to say before. Remember I said primers are sort of the limiting factor for ammo production. What we've seen is, I was trying to say at that point, we don't see people reproducing the old ammo anymore, because why would they? Yeah.
It's not worth the money.
You have to stop your manufacturer for hours to then
change
drop
out
in
the dyes and everything. Yeah.
Right. And then you start producing it. Well, in those hours, how many thousands of dollars did you lose? Because you have pre-sold every 7.62 NATO cartridge you've made for the next 10 years. It's all pre-sold on contract.
Yeah.
So we're going to take down the 7.62 NATO making machine to make 7.7 Japanese that will sell at what rate for what dollar amount. So, and everybody's mad because, like, why does it cost me $40 a box? And you're going, because they gave up several hours of just money printer to make, like, subsidized money printer, you know?
There's one cartridge that I want to come back and take off.
What's that?
Yeah.
7.62 Tokarev.
That's good.
In a modern pistol.
You're talking about 30 Mauser plus P?
Yeah. Exactly. But in a modern pistol, so when I got my Tokarev, so, you know, you do a bunch of research on the ammo and things like that, and then I think it was a company out of China was shipping them to Canada only. It was P226 clones and 7.62 Tokarev.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I want one. And then you're like, I can't get one because of import restrictions and nonsense.
Our animator has a, oh, good Lord. Is it a Bernadelli? It's a very steeply raked 1970s era. I want to say it's a Wonder 9. I want to think it's a single double.
I can't remember.
It's a modern handgun slide operated that runs 30 Luger, I believe. And oh my God, is that so fun to shoot?
Oh, I believe it.
And I would bank on it. Like 30 Luger is not as good as 9 in some ways, but I still, like, in terms of recoil and on target and just dumping rounds, and that thing had beautifully swept grip and everything. Awesome. So I could see the same thing. But to be fair, you could, I guess that's what they're trying to do with the 30 Super Carry, is the same concept. But I just don't think people are ready for it.
Well, this brings up another question that I think it's been bugging me, and I want your opinion on this, both of you. So we have Colt, we have Remington, you know, Browning, you know these names of gun designers. The last big one that I can think of is Glock.
Right.
We don't know. We don't have. It seems like everything's designed by committee. So is there a name that would
an
be
individual?
An individual.
First of all, barrier to entry is huge.
Yeah.
And this is legislatively too. If you think about it, because I talked to a lot of firearms guys. So I actually came up with a firearms concept based on something I've seen in history that hasn't come back around that I think needs to be done. And I don't want to say too much about it because I would like my friend to be able to work on it before going to market. But we
haven't signed an NDA, but yeah, we'd prefer to try.
Yeah. No, let him have first crack at the concept. But I had an idea and I was talking to him about it, and it came down to, can we design it in such a way so that it is a non-firearm and therefore can piggyback the current firearms market? Because the minute it becomes a firearm, what do we have to do?
So much.
And I think that's a big part of it. And so because of these sort of legislative, not only there's the law, and then there's the fear of the law, and then there's the fear of lawsuit. And so I think it drives a lot of engineers into working for the bigger companies. And then when the engineers work for the bigger companies, instead of launching their own insane madhouse ideas on their own, they get where they're sort of anonymized.
Well, they're not having to front a bunch of money themselves to get all set up to be able to do that stuff. The company's paying for everything for them, so it's making convenient. Oh, look, it's so convenient. You can make all these ideas for us.
Even if you're an innovator for that company, they don't want to put you on the front face of it because they're trending on their old name.
Right.
And so they're going, well, we don't want to put Randy on the face of everything, because if Randy leaves us, then we're screwed. You know? So a derivative of Glock would be Bubbets. So he designed what is the Steyr M9, which is, or the M whatever, because the L9, the S9, God, Steyr, give it a name. I think I read that he wanted to call it like the Draconi, and they wouldn't let him.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Right. I think he likes mythical creatures. But he did the Caracal as well. And the BB Tech, I believe. There's a couple of guns, and they're all fairly innovative handguns. But they kind of went to first of all, he took the M9 to Steyr, and Steyr did not push that pistol, which is actually a very smart pistol in a lot of ways. But they're not pushing it, so it doesn't. Nobody does industry coverage of the Steyr M9, like because they don't play the game and they don't get out there in front of everybody, and they almost seem reluctant to sell it.
Well, they're not even owned by themselves anymore.
Yeah,
They Rex bought them.
Yeah, it's a whole
Or
mess.
RX, whatever you want to call them.
So, like, I would say Bubbets is a good modern inventor, but then you don't see them putting him out front.
I honestly, I didn't know that name until you said it just now.
Yeah, I might be getting it wrong, to be honest with you. I hope I'm not offending.
I mean, George Kalgren, maybe.
Oh yeah. But see, Keltec runs itself, which is
Right.
good. He branded on himself. But then I'm trying to think of, does he individually say that I invented each of these pieces, or does he say Keltec does now? Because how much of it is
good
Kalgren
question.
himself
What's
now?
the PR got him saying?
Like, I'm not entirely sure what Kalgren did himself versus who else at this point with some of the designs they've come out more recently. I'm not sure because they tend to anonymize.
How much of it is him, and how much of it was extra parts from other people assisting?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I have a friend that's involved in the accessories market and also is a quiet firearms designer who does it on license for other companies. So you never know. I can name 5 companies that have sold his firearms.
Yep.
But you wouldn't know they're all from him. They're in different companies. And it'd be nice if he could trade on his name, but he's NDA'd out, and that's how they do their payments for whatever, and it's all obscured. So it's just the way the market works now, I guess.
I mean, and that's sad, though. To me, that's sad that you don't, because we have all these legendary gun designers. You know the name, you know the Samuel Colts, like you know the John Moses Brownings, you know all these legendary names, and now you just don't.
The company's also protecting themselves with that because the individual, let's say they have some political affiliations.
I mean, you can
that
look
the
at
company
Browning's
doesn't wanna
history
be a
and
part of.
you understand, oh God, like, because when he stopped working with Winchester, it was a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
So it would have been smart for Winchester to never let anybody know that he was the man behind it all. But luckily, he's thought to put his own name on it as part of his contracts. You know what I mean? It's like Browning's patent. They led with it. Now I think they're a little more savvy than that. I don't think they want you to know who's doing their inventing work. So,
Which is, I just find that sad. Like, I don't know.
it is, but it's self-protection,
Right.
though. They don't want their designer walking out and causing. Also, to be fair, we have a very reactionary society now. So if your lead designer goes out and does something that nobody agrees with, then all of a sudden you're in hot water. So if nobody knows who the designer is, then he can go get arrested or charged with whatever. He could say whatever bigoted thing he wants, you know. Not that I know he is a bigot, but like, it's weird. But if you think about it as a company, it must be scary to say, like, you know, if Randy over there gets a head injury and just starts yelling about, you know, conspiracies, we're going to catch so much flack.
Right. Or if you ever find out who redesigned the R51. I really wanted to love that. I really did.
Yeah, it didn't.
It didn't.
I had a buddy that was actually, we were talking about him before. He runs a little channel called Phoenix Fart. He was deep into that gun, and that was such a disappointment.
Oh, I got really deep into it. I bought one, and I'm probably the only person who put like 2,000 rounds to that gun.
No, he did too. I'm
Oh,
sure.
did he?
Oh, yeah. He probably did.
I really wanted to love it.
He like sent his back and everything and got it tuned up.
Oh, I did the same thing. I sent it back, got tuned up, still ran into issues. They sent new magazines. It's like, now I can't blame anybody because they don't exist under the original.
I was kind of offended by that gun, not because of the internal problems. That's its own issue. Yeah. I did not like the slick grips. It just felt too smooth. And I'm going, I thought we moved into texturing because I like painful texturing. Like
it's true. He likes the most aggressive checkering you can have.
The Steyr M9A2s with their like modular
that.
grip stuff feels great to me. Like anything that hurts. I mean, just the more aggressive, the better.
To remind him of
He's the one person who wanted like the sandpaper from Smith & Wesson on the...
I've got a CZ75 compact with G10 scales on it that are just... most people will pick them up and be like, ah, God, how can you shoot this? I'm going, it doesn't move when I shoot. Who cares if it feels a little pinchy? Like when I shoot, my hands don't slide. When I reach to draw... I'm on it. We
also do come from the Charleston humidity, so we are used to being covered in sweat all the time. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't evaporate. It stays with you. So you need the texture.
I live in the desert. I don't have that problem.
Oh yeah, you can leave your bag of chips open and not care.
No.
I can't even. My chips go bad if I open them every time I reach in there.
Yeah.
Ours just goes stale real fast. That's about it because there's no humidity.
Ours just gets soggy.
Yeah, soggy.
Everything just gets soggy.
Everything gets soggy. Everything's covered in mold.
Dude,
you stop scrubbing the outside of your house down here for like a week, and it's reclaimed by nature. Like,
And the way to work in the sweat too, in the heat, you have to learn how to operate differently in this the Charleston humidity.
It's the same thing in the Arizona desert. You go there and you're just like, okay, I'm good. It's a great day.
No, it turns out you should have been drinking the water the entire
your
time.
Your body's just like, okay, you're done. I'm like, what? What are you?
You died.
What?
We had Ian over, and it's so funny comparing notes because out in the desert, it's like if you can keep the sun off you and you can keep hydrating, you can keep going.
Oh yeah,
it's true.
And we were trying to tell him, I was like, I know you think you know this heat. Stop jogging. You know, it has to be like, just stop jogging. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, your sweat is it? Because eventually he realized he's like, because he's having to wipe sweat off.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not evaporating. I was like, right, we're at 98% humidity. There's nowhere for it to go. It won't evaporate. You're not cooling off. Period. There's no cooling off. Your temperature cannot be. You can hydrate all you want. The temperature won't go down. You know, we get the thing of like lazy Southerners, and it's like, well, hold on, because once you jog and your body temperature rises, you can't get it back down until you find shade or water or something,
and or AC.
Yeah, well, now AC. So, yeah, you gotta pace yourself. So it's funny, but you know, it might look like the younger guys will go out with me sometimes because they're not as outdoor oriented. They grow up with computers, even if they're from here, you know. Yeah. And I'll go out, and I'm 40 now, and I'm just walking around. And they're hustling, and they think they're outrunning me. And then within 3 hours, they're lucky to last 3 hours.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm on hour 6, still just walking. And I'll bury them by just wandering my butt around because I know how to pace what we're doing in this heat. So,
yeah. Well, like Ian said, you don't in the desert, you don't sweat because everything just evaporates. So when I go out and film and shoot, it's just like you'll go from like, I'm really good. It's a good day, drinking water, and then next minute, you know, you're just like, oh, I'm done. Like
I feel bad.
I feel bad.
I gotta sit down.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories about some of the guys out there taking like Californians out for industry work and just being like, oh my god, this guy might actually die because he didn't remember to drink water while we were working.
Did he bring a single bottle that's 24 liters only, or 24?
Oh yeah, I bring 4 or 5 water jugs. Just to stay hydrated, and you're just like, oh.
God.
Meanwhile, I'm so I would die because I'll take one bottle of water and it'll last me almost half a day.
Remember that one
even
time?
in the heat here because it's like, well, it's not going anywhere.
Our first film session, we were really stupid and we didn't realize that the weather was cooperating with us and making us believe that we didn't need water or food. We were fine. The very next time we went out, blistering sun, we were stupid, didn't bring any water or food.
The first test footage we did outdoors was overcast, so it looked great. And then we went out to film our second session and we went, everything looks like shit. What is going on? we went, oh God, the sun is bad. So now we did this last week.
Yeah.
So, partially cloudy days are the worst.
Oh yeah.
Because you sit there and you go, okay, am I filming in highlight? Okay, I get all the cameras adjusted, hit record, because we run a bank of like 5 cameras.
Yep.
And then you hit record and the cloud comes over and you're like, crap, because now it's just pitch black in there. And now the cloud's better. So you end up playing this game of like watching, I'm going to have holes in my retinas because I just watched the sky waiting for a big cloud. And I go, big cloud, hit record. And like hit record, you got to run through the whole scenario under one cloud, or maybe we have to stop in the middle and then wait for another cloud to finish filming.
Yeah, we try to make our segments look as consistent as possible, but sometimes it's more than one segment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And between ISOs and ND filters, they become your friend real quickly.
Yeah, I think other guys are just running auto. They just let it run auto, and I can't. Continuous auto never plays right.
Doesn't look good.
Doesn't look great at all.
No. So we use like 4 cameras to capture 4 or 5 cameras depending on what we're doing to capture everything May's doing.
Yep.
We were talking about this before the show. We run 4 layers of stereo, so 8 channels of sound. So we have like a lavalier on her hip that's set fairly sensitively to pick up the clicks and pops.
Yep.
We have 2 shotgun mics set further back to catch the sound of the firearms boom. We have an Omni mic that's sort of set for average human hearing that's just sitting there picking up the boom as you and I would normally hear it. And then we have another Omni mic that's set up that is dialed way, way down. So it's very insensitive. Like you'd have to scream into it to get it to really hear you. But it's picking up that round sort of top of the crack of the gun. Mm-hmm. And so if you ever watch like a CN Arsenal shooting video, we've gotten tons of compliments on the sound because it sounds much more like a real firearm.
And actually, we've been doing that since probably episode 6 or 7.
Yeah. We've got it designed so that it basically, as one mic caps out, another mic starts collecting data. And then that way we have the full sound of the gun going off.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I learned a lot about audio and realized like If you've ever filmed and then you're like, oh, this audio sounds awful. I really wish I ran a backup. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
No,
That's us with the cameras, actually. Weirdly, sometimes we're like, I wish we had a sixth camera sometimes.
Yeah, generally we have 4. Every once in a while we have a 5th. So
well, we can't waste ammunition. We can't be like someone running around with a single camera. This area, this. No. We capture it all at once.
We have to get it all set up. We have to wait for the light to be right, and then I have to go around, turn everything on, focus at everything, get it all ready, and then turn it off because they'll cook in the sun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then I have to sit there and wait until we get the right moment, and then I run around and turn them all on. And then I have to do a back check too, just to make sure they're actually recording, because you never know. You turn it on, you go to the next camera, and then it has a memory card error or something. So I'll sit there every time and rhyme to myself. I'll go I'll set them all up, 1, 2, and then we have 2 audio channels to record on. So I'll go buckle shoe, and then camera 3 and 4. And then if I have a 5th one, I'll be like, all right, shut the door. And then I'll just sing the rhyme back again the other way, just to make sure they're all recording.
Because it's just him checking.
And it's like, so that takes, that's like 30 seconds of running around for a second, and then she starts doing her thing and it's over in less than 5 minutes, hopefully. And then we.
Less than 5 minutes. What am I doing?
I set up. So normally I run 3 cameras. I set up the one time we were filming. I set up A shot, B shot, and then I got this dope angle on C. I'm like, cool, this is going to time up perfectly. Somehow it got set to slow-mo.
Oh, no.
So the whole day, it was just all slow-mo footage from this dope angle. I'm like, great.
How much data was that?
A ton.
Had to be a ton.
That's the hard one.
A ton of data. And I was like, why is the camera all full? What is happening? And that's when we found out everything was run slow-mo.
We run into that problem too with data, because everybody, we have so much data, because all of our photos, all of our video, we run a big NAS, and then I don't really want to cloud store all that stuff.
Nope.
So I have to have a second NAS on a different location and sync it to the first NAS. Like, it's a whole mess. I come from a technology background, thank God. So
oh yeah, hooray!
That's how the show exists, is because I basically came from a technology background. I was like, I guess I'm going to learn how to film and animate and edit and all this other stuff, and then I'm going to have to learn.
And then I learned what I could from him and
learn.
YouTube, and then now this is what we do.
Yeah, poor May came in and did not know this stuff, and I was just like, here's the template. And she had to hit the ground
All
running.
I'm really good at is being a bulldozer. I'm going to say that's consistently, I am an excellent bulldozer. If you put me on a task, I will go. I'll forget to eat and drink water along the way, but I will just not go until the task is complete.
That's SHOT Show. SHOT Show. I'm a bulldozer. Like I'll go. My boss, the co-host Kailey, who normally is here with us, she wasn't doing well today. I set up meetings for SHOT Show, and I'm a bulldozer. I'm like, I will take a meeting whenever I can. She goes, "Did you look at the locations before you took this meeting?" I'm like, "No, I'm taking a meeting."
Oh, you should see
I'm
it.
taking a meeting, and she goes,
You have to drive 30 minutes that way, an hour that way.
She goes, "What the heck are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, we're on the main floor. We got to go to Caesar's next, and then we got to come back to the main floor, and then we did like 20 miles just on the floor." And she's like, "What? Why did you set it up that way?" I'm like, "Because
we gotta get it done.
We're getting it done.
Yeah.
Oh no,
It's gotta get
no,
happen.
we've done this. So the same thing. We our big show is usually like Louisville, because that's a big collector show, and in Louisville, every third person talks to me. So I end up meeting hundreds of people and wandering around, which is weird for me. The first time we went to Louisville was insane, because we're in South Carolina. YouTube caught on a little late here. People were more outdoor oriented. There's not as many old gun guys necessarily, and if they are,
I
they're
can
the
count
old
on
guys.
probably just 2 hands how many times I've been recognized in South Carolina.
Even today.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Gun shows are slightly different. Outside of a gun show, I've only been recognized like 10 times in this state.
Yeah.
I will go to even like Virginia and just get recognized out, just randomly.
Yep.
I mean, I've probably been recognized in Virginia 30 times, and I haven't even been to Virginia but 3 times in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the South Carolina gun shows, everybody already knew me before the show. I already was that guy that wandered around and talked to everybody. So almost no one that's a vendor thinks anything of me as a every once in a while, once a year, one of them figures out what YouTube is and goes, "You got people following?" Like all of a sudden, they're like,
yeah. One of them saw the Pedersen video the other day, and they went, "Oh man, I saw you on that video.
Like,
I had no clue that's what you were doing."
Even though we probably told them 20 times.
Yeah. And they went, yeah, sure.
Now
whatever.
that the younger guys are finally coming around, like the Zoomer generation came in, every once in a while I get recognized by Zoomers. But that's really about it.
They're interesting.
And that's at the gun show. My favorite is... Did you ever... I don't know. The Gundies, did you hear our whole Gundy debacle? That's a great story. So we went to the Gundies that one year, and nobody knew who we were except
they were
for like...
so confused.
The only people that knew us were guys that already kind of knew us, because Brandon Herrera's from around here, so he knew who we were. And then I kind of know. I know at least one of his dirty secrets, so I sneaked that up on him. So now he really knows me. But
he won't forget you.
He's
now.
a Southern boy. So we knew him-ish. You know what I mean? And then I had Ian with me. I made Ian McCollum come with me, and Matt LaRosiere from Fudbusters, which is the best combination because Ian is a very like. When it comes to public handling, he's a very center of the road, don't make waves, calm kind of guy.
Which is pretty good going.
Matt and I are chaos agents. Like we're both Floridians in every sense of the word. I often say to people that Florida is America's PvP zone.
It is.
It's like PvP and PvE. But there's this thing I keep running into other Floridians out there, and we have this like 80s and 90s Floridians have this manic.
If you say the word "like" one more time, I'm going to staple your mouth shut.
We have this.
Do it.
We have this manic energy around negotiation and fun. Mm-hmm. And I actually was talking to a friend of mine about this. Anybody that grew up with this is why Florida people are the way they are. When we grew up as kids, it was the DARE program, don't do drugs, right? But every adult around us, like Uncle Ted or whatever, was on cocaine. They're all using coke. But we're told, okay, you got to keep up with that guy. And they don't tell us he's on cocaine. They just tell us that's how it is. So don't do drugs, but keep up with him. So what do? We develop this mania about like work and like focus, and everything's up for negotiation because it's very
heard
weird
all those likes,
stuff.
right? I'm just teasing.
Yeah. So we're very aggressive in this weird friendly aggressive way.
It's true.
And we like chaos. We're completely fine with things that make other people uncomfortable. So it's us with Ian. We stuck him in the back of for the event for the Gundies. Yeah. You go to this hotel. They put you in a bus and drive you like 45 minutes to the event.
Yeah.
And we put Ian in the middle of the back. And then Matt and I start trying to sing sea shanties. And it's causing people to be upset, except for I think Herrera was the only one that joined us. Everybody else they don't know any sea shanties. So Matt LaRosiere is egging them on. So we're winding everybody up. We're making them irritated. They have no clue who we are. And it's actually really funny because I think most of them are like Instagram guys or whatever. I think Herrera and I were the only two in the bus that had over 200,000 people at that time or something because we were in the other bus, you know? And so I'm like a 500,000 user channel, which is not huge, but it's bigger than a lot of what's here. But they have no clue because we're in this little market that nobody knows about. So I'm anonymous. No one at the entire event recognized me other than like 3 people. You know, it's like I know Rapid Fire Rachel personally, not because it's because her dad watches.
Yeah, her dad loves her show. Yeah.
So.
Well, she likes us too.
Yeah, I mean, she's friends, but and it's like just a handful of people knew us, but otherwise I'm completely anonymous in an environment where everybody's competing to have a quarter of the views that I have, which made me laugh. So like, this is my perfect chaos. So by the end, we had tried to force a bus into yelling sea shanties and embarrassed Ian so bad that he avoided us for the rest of the night. I got Herrera to drunkenly sing a few bars of some songs that he shouldn't know, and then. You stole a golf cart for like half the day from the venue.
I stole a golf cart.
Like,
I found out golf cart
and then
keys are
everybody
universal.
thought she worked. So May's running around and everybody there
I wanted a golf
thinks
cart.
she works for the venue. So she just started playing golf cart taxi driver and they think she works for the tank
I met
guys.
a lot of nice Insta people.
And not a single person was like, aren't you May? No, they don't know who she is.
No.
So like we were just, I mean, pure chaos. And on the way back, there's this horrible drunken fight on the bus. So some woman got engaged. Yeah. And then she wanted to sit next to her now fiance, but they didn't have the seat openings the right way. So she arbitrarily decides this one guy has to move so they can play the shuffle game. There's some other way to solve it, but she fixates on one guy. He's like, I'm sitting with my friend. I'm staying here. Instead of moving on, she starts arguing with him. So now it's like a 20-minute argument in the bus. And it's right next to Matt LaRosiere from Fudbusters. And he's an attorney. So he's like, no, you just need to understand that this is So he starts trying to do like, negotiation. He's like, just offer him $20. And she's like, I'm not giving him $20. And he's like, I'm not moving for $20. He's like, okay, 25. And they're like, he's escalating this argument. She goes to throw a drink at him and ends up smacking some of it onto my animator who's behind him. So he's like, oh, great. Now I'm covered in whatever. And the whole time, Rapid Fire Rachel has remembered the shanties. She heard about the shanties in the morning. So she's like, I want to sing shanties at night. But now they're drunk and they don't know any shanties. And also, she doesn't want to do shanties. She's like, I want to do Yellow Rose of Texas. And I was like, these guys are not going to know Yellow Rose of Texas. But she's in the seat in front of me and she spun around. So she's like, Rachel's leaned over practically in my lap trying to like yell in my ear so I can hear her over this argument.
It was a very loud
Her
bus.
friend's trying to get her. the other girl's friend's trying to get her. So now basically all the females on the bus are like pooled around where we are.
Oh, I guess technically I was there too.
Yeah, and you're with me. Yeah. So like all the girls are like right in the middle of the bus, in the middle of this weird, insane argument. Matt and I are egging everybody on, and the rest of them are going, "Who are these guys? What the heck is going on?" They've gathered every bit of attention on this bus, and no one can figure out who we are. And again, I left. I don't think anybody ever figured out. I think there was like a fist fight right after the bus. I mean, we wound it up so bad.
That was interesting.
And then just pieced out.
Well, I think it was IV-88 the one year I met you. Mm-hmm. I met you first, and then I ran into you because Paz Derek was talking to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's her buddy.
Oh, he's fantastic.
I love Jeremy.
I love Jeremy.
Yeah.
Jeremy and I grew up 20 minutes from each other.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God, that's so cute. Yeah. Oh, manly cute.
Yeah. But when I go home, I'll drive down to his shop and hang out with him for a little bit and drive back home.
Yeah, he had a baby.
Yeah,
he's had several babies.
No, but recently, I meant.
Yeah,
yes. Congratulations
so Rachel.
on baby. Oh yeah, congratulations on babies, people.
Yeah. She was here right before baby, right?
Yeah, she was here.
She still had baby.
I think
she's still
I'm
making
friends with her on
baby.
Facebook. I see this stuff. But
I think she announced the pregnancy.
She did. She did some pregnancy photos.
I talked to her dad more than her.
Her dad's an interesting guy.
Yeah,
he's really interesting.
Her mom was really nice too, and her sister.
Yeah,
I don't think I've met the brother. I haven't met the brother though.
Her mother, I love. Her family's much more introverted than her, except for maybe her dad.
Yeah.
So we were having dinner with the parents, and because they just breezed. I found out I was talking to Rachel about something with the machine gun shoot, and I was like, "What's your dad up to?" And she's like, "Actually, I think he's in Charleston." I went, "He can't call me," so then I have to go call him and be like, "Are we getting dinner?" And he's just like, "Oh, I didn't even think to call you." So I go with her dad and mom without her. And so now we're gossiping, and she's like, and their other daughter's very quiet and calm and not public, and so
I'm not sure what she thought of me when I came up to her and went, "Oh my goodness, hello, nice to meet you."
So we're having a great time with the parents. Their mom's like, "Yeah, we don't know where she came from," because no one else in the family is that extroverted. Before I came on here, I had to review the podcast because you guys sent me the email. I was like, "Oh, I haven't heard that podcast," so I went to listen to some episodes, and I was like looking for people I knew. So I saw Liberty Doll was on here. I started listening to that episode. Imagine my surprise when I was mentioned in that episode. And you guys did not know that I was mentioned in that episode. In that episode, she said when she first moved here, she was like at a gun show and a group of like 5 people just like waylaid her and was like, "Hey, we know who you are." It was us. It was us guys. Yeah, we were the ones. That's the reason there were 5 is because I can't go to a gun show without 5 people following me around now. So like it meant to be just me. I was just gonna be like, "Hey, I saw you moved here. If you ever need anything, I'm down in Charleston. I'm aware of you. You know what I mean? Like I've seen you in the industry. I don't know if you watch us, but here's my contact." But the problem is, it's me surrounded by people, and she's like so panicked. And I was like, "Oh my God!" I didn't realize how small she was. She's very tiny.
She's very tiny.
It's me. So I'm just like hulked up to her. I was like, "Oh, hey, Liberty Doll. I'm blah blah." And she's like, I guarantee you, from her expression and the story she told you, I started explaining who I was, and she just heard like. And so it's really funny because I listened to that podcast, and even before I came here, I sent an email. I was like, "Hey, sorry for waylaying." So we actually had a conversation about her mentioning, because I'm the jerk in the story that showed up and was just like, "I know who you are,"
with a posse of 5.
And I think the other person with me that I don't know if she registered. I want to say the person that was standing with me was Such Double Aught. Because he also goes to that show with me. So like it's like Such and I hang out in Greenville. So I bet you he was in that group at that time.
We need to get him on too at some point.
Yeah, his wife is lovely.
Did you email him?
I think they did, but
I think his daughter handles his contact usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few people I wanted.
Did you need somebody respectable to reach out to him?
I guess so. I don't know.
Okay, so not you. That would be me.
Oh. I mean, to be fair, the family loves you.
Yeah.
So. All right, we're going to wrap up. Again, guys, thank you so much for being on. I've had a fun time. I got to nerd out with this awesome shot trench gun in front of me. I'm so happy that you brought this. I know we didn't play with it while we were talking, but it was such a good conversation.
You were worried you're going to get yelled at.
Oh, I was worried I was going to get yelled at too.
Do we need to record another one of these so we can actually talk about what we're supposed to talk about?
Wait, what were we supposed to talk about?
We're supposed to talk gun policy or something.
We did. We touched on it briefly.
No, we just talked history and then gossip.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the... So
he interrupted his outro.
I am not the policy guy.
Oh, okay.
I come from the industry. I am the gun nerd of GOA.
So we need Kailey.
So Kailey's the policy person.
She should wring your neck when she hears this.
Oh yeah, she'll wring my neck. It's okay. Well, we touched on a brief bit of policy, talking about designing new guns. We talked.
I thought you were going to remember.
Policy a little bit. But
Like, if you want me to yell about the government, we can do another hour.
we could do another hour.
It's true. He can. I'll just leave and just let you guys yell.
But yeah, appreciate you guys. I really do appreciate you guys being on. We will have to have you on again to do more policy talk because, I mean, we had to get the gun nerd stuff out because this would have been, she would have gotten mad at me while I was staying here because I would just gun nerd for like an hour. But appreciate you guys coming, really do.
Thanks for having us.
Guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Wait, before we do that, where can people find you?
Oh my goodness. Who are
You
we?
can't. It's unspellable, so don't worry about it.
No, C&RSENAL is our name.
C and Arsenal.
C and Arsenal.
Or just go on YouTube and look for your favorite World War I firearm. I'm sure we're in the top 3 recommendations on whatever it was.
God, I would hope so. It's the long documentary one.
Yeah, it's the ones that are an hour long that nobody watches because it was just like, who's got an hour to watch?
Maybe one person watches.
If you want Peepaw, who doesn't know how to spell that very well, oldgunshow.com.
Oh, that actually is true. We did grab the domain oldgunshow.com because then it will just redirect to us.
Yeah.
I like that. That's
fantastic.
I forgot. Thank you.
No worries. Oldgunshow.com. We got that for Peepaw, who's having a hard
seriously,
time.
we're having C and Arsenal's the worst name I ever came up with because nobody can spell it.
We regret that. We did think of simpler names at the time, and we totally just went, let's go for
it turns out Old Gun Show was free. We could have just done Old Gun Show and we'd have been millionaires.
But no, now we stole the domain.
The sad part is I've looked at your logo so many times. It took me like up until 6 months ago to figure out that was a clip from a Garand.
No, I've learned.
I thought it was a bunch of books.
I was so deep. Well, it is. It's supposed to be a book and a Garand clip.
It's an M
combined.
book.
I was being too esoteric. Like when I started this, I had all these ambitions about being highbrow, and then I found out what people on the internet are like, and I would still love to do the highbrow, but unfortunately, I won't make any money. So I should have named it Old Gun Show with Gun Professor McBeardface, and it would have been way easier. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, it's sad, but the dumbest name sticks so much better.
Yeah.
Like,
so from now on, go to comment Gun Professor McBeardface.
Yeah.
Episodes.
Yeah, Fat Ian.
You have been called that.
Yeah.
That actually is unfortunate. Yeah.
Oh, we get confused for forgotten weapons all the time. The crowning achievement of my life is that we were at the Cody. There's a Winchester show in Cody.
Yeah.
And Ian comes up to me. I'm at the little commissary that's over there, and then Ian comes up to me and goes, "Well, I know what it's like to be you." And I went, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I was talking to a nice gentleman over there who's going on and on about how much he loved the show." And then he said, "Yeah, and I like the way you got that woman that shoots all the guns for you." And I went, it finally happened. Somebody confused Ian for me.
Did Ian look at himself and be like, did I get fat?
He was so dejected about it. I was like, "Welcome to my pain."
Dude, what?
Everywhere, all the comments.
Everybody thinks I work for Ian for some reason.
I mean, I feel like the guy who's the guy in Britain.
Jonathan Ferguson.
Yeah, I feel like everyone thinks that he works for Ian too.
Oh, yeah,
sure.
to a degree. I was in the room when Jonathan Ferguson's show was invented.
Yeah.
Because we were at a museum conference and we were talking
of
about
that.
outreach, and there was some doubts in the room, and I kind of made a sales pitch about no, you should be doing this kind of outreach. And Ian backed me up on that too. He's like, "Yeah, you guys should be doing this you have the research, you should do it. There's no reason not to do it. And it doesn't hurt us if they do it, because it's like if 3 people make a video about the Winchester 97, people watch all 3.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a zero sum. So it's like he went back and like 8-9 months later they started trying to put the episodes together, and then they kind of came out the next year, and I was just like, yep, I definitely remember his facial expression. He's like, I should really be doing that.
And he's done a great job.
Oh, yeah.
The whole team has.
Oh, I love John. We send him snacks.
I just
It's true.
need John.
Oh, crap. I still have to send him snacks.
We literally have Jonathan, if you're listening to this, we have a box for you that's been in my house for like a
I've
week.
tried to send it 4 times.
If he's listening to this, I want him to come on and I want to be friends. That's my goal.
I love Jonathan. He's a
he's a lovely
genuinely
man.
friendly person.
I think between all 3 of you guys are all my favorite people to watch because I love gun nerding
3.
stuff.
Yeah, that's the Royal Armory's channel if you want to see Jonathan.
Royal.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a researching curator too, because I currently am like 8 emails deep into some BS revolver stuff with him right now.
It's true.
I love Jonathan.
They're besties.
They're best. Well, all right, I got to wrap this up.
Yes, you
because we're
do.
running out of time.
Okay, y'all do.
Guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the little bell for notification. Go to on all podcasting hosts, leave a 5-star review.
Show over.